I am Amina Nujaim. Barka da Sallah. The World Bank says global economic growth is forecast to ease to a weaker 2.6% in 2019 before inching up to 2.7% in 2020. In its mid-year global economic prospects, the World Bank projects that growth in emerging markets and developing economies is expected to stabilize in 2020 as some countries move past periods of financial strain. Meanwhile, the bank noted that for sub-Saharan Africa, growth is expected to accelerate to 3.3% in 2020, assuming that investor sentiment towards some of the large economies of the region improves. The World Bank did indicate that per capita GDP is expected to rise in the region. It will nevertheless be insufficient to significantly reduce poverty. In 2020, growth in Angola is anticipated to pick up to 2.9%. Nigeria, 2.2%, and growth in South Africa is anticipated to rise to 1.5%. Money laundered by Sani Abacha, former Nigeria head of state and army general, has been seized from a bank in New Jersey. The money worth 211 million euros, which is over 8 billion naira, was put into accounts held in New Jersey by Doraville Properties Corporation, a British Virgin Island company. The money will be held by government until authorities in New Jersey, the United States and Nigeria come to an agreement on how it should be utilized. Telecommunications and telecom sector refreshed 3.5 million subscribers were connected to the internet in the month of April by the service providers in the country. Latest statistics released by the Nigeria Communications Commission (NCC) showed that from 115.9 million internet users in March, the figure rose to 119.5 million within 1 month. However, the operators lost 72,782 voice subscribers as the figure dropped from 173.71 million in March to 173.64 million. The statistics further shows that MTN, which on March 16 listed 20.9 million ordinary shares at 19 naira with a par value of 0.02 naira on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, garnered the largest new internet subscribers for the period under review. It was followed by Globacom and Airtel. The program is Business Express, coming to you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We will take a short break and we'll be right back. Small and medium-scale enterprises are said to be the backbone of the economy, and most of such enterprises are owned by entrepreneurs who play a great role in the development of the economy. In this Settler package of Business Express, we bring to you a discussion I had earlier with Dr. Kechi Obuagu on developing entrepreneurial skills, especially among youths in Nigeria, who is the president and founder of Conversation for Change. Good to see you, Dr.
Thank you.
Kechi.
It's a pleasure to be here.
In an era where diversification is the order of the day, there's a lot of talk about entrepreneurship. Who is an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. Who indeed is an entrepreneur? I think the dictionary, if I may use that, says that it is anybody who is, willing to take the risk of starting a business, take some financial risks in doing so, in the hope of making a profit. I mean, that sums it up. You're willing to take on some business, put in money, take the risk of your finances, in the hope, of course, that you will make a profit so that it's a successful enterprise.
Now, at the risk of stating the obvious, I did make mention in the introduction that entrepreneurship is like the backbone of the development of any society. What would you say the significant role is of the entrepreneur?
I'm even looking for a word stronger than backbone. Perhaps the foundation of any economy, the foundation of any country is indeed its entrepreneurs, people, the businesses, how good and strong the businesses are. When an economy thrives, I'm not a financial person as such, but when an economy thrives, it's because the businesses are strong and people are buying. People are spending, and then your economy is strong. So I think it illustrates very clearly that entrepreneurs who drive the economy are the backbone of a country, and indeed help the country reach its potential of economic development, economic power.
Now, still talking about development and power, empowering the economy. If you would put a number at it, what would you say the contribution is financially to the economy if entrepreneurship is taken seriously?
Again, without claiming to be an economist or a financial expert, but from my own limited perspective, I think the entrepreneur probably plays at least 70 to 80% of the role in the strength of an economy. When you support enterprises with enabling environment, infrastructure, and so on and so forth, the policies, the regulations, so that their businesses thrive, they probably, contribute at least 80 to 90% of the potential of the economy of that country.
Dr. Kechi, in an era where entrepreneurship is becoming sort of the trend, we still have youths who constitute a large chunk of the population seeking white-collar jobs. Now, what would your advice be to such people?
Yeah, a great question. Let me say that there's a huge potential in being an entrepreneur and becoming successful there. But there's also a huge risk, all right? For people, I think the characteristics of a potentially successful entrepreneur include bright ideas, innovativeness, persistence, patience, grit, determination, hard work, and the ability to take risks and accept challenges.
When you talk about risks, what do you mean?
Risk in the terms of the fact that any business you start is a risk. You're going to invest your money, and there's a risk that you will lose it, and perhaps lose the money you borrowed and other people's money as well. So it's always a risk. Even for the best planned and run businesses, there are potential risks out there that you may never have anticipated. So it is a risk. You have to have the courage to take that risk. If you if you know you don't have those characteristics, don't start a business, look for a white-collar job. So in other words, business is not necessarily for everybody.
Okay.
And therefore, in any country, we have to make allowances and provisions for the various types of people we have, scenarios there are, but the ones who indeed have the personality traits and ambition to do business, there's huge potential there. And like we said, when businesses thrive, the country thrives.
Talking about risks, one of the challenges is capital. And there's a lot of complaint about capital. Now, despite the fact that capital is necessary to start up any business, which is more important, capital or skill?
It's a tough question. I'm not even sure whether I'm going to fall into the trap of trying to say which is. Both of them are very important.
Because if you have the capital, you don't have the skill, that's a risk on its own or a challenge.
But if you have all the skill in the world without the capital, you will not be able to take off your... Every business requires investment. Whether it's in terms of buying equipment, whether in terms of employing staff, or whether in terms of buying the product, and so on and so forth. So they're usually, capital intensive to limited extent, depending on the business and the scale. But you do need the financial capital. But of course, you need the talent. But again, I say even more, sometimes more important than talent, are the other characteristics I talked about. Dogged determination, ability to pick yourself up when you fall, grit, persistence, innovation, all those things are as equally important as talent.
Okay. Now, we are still going to talk about the finance necessary to start up and businesses. Now, in the last 4 years, what would your comment be on efforts that government are challenging issues of access to finance?
I, again, say I'm not an expert at this, but it is an area that I have paid some attention to. And I am encouraged by the efforts government is making. Government is making efforts. I've watched the various structures being put in place. Some of them are still planned that would give access to financing and loan to people generally, particularly to young people. The various trainings that are happening to improve skills and talents, as you call them. And even the support and so on and so forth to market women. But it's a huge endeavor and one in which all hands have to come on deck. It's not just something government can ever do alone. It is everybody, the government, the private sector, the non-profits like ours, like myself. All of us need to have come into it.
That brings me to my next question. The role of NGOs like yours in helping those interested in entrepreneurship. What are your roles? Where do you come in? Are you the same as private sector? What do you do?
It's a great question. For me, without trying to diverge too much, when we started Conversations for Change, we primarily were thinking about other youth empowerment endeavors. Okay. But we talked to young people extensively since it was a youth supporting organization. And what came out strongest was we need to be economically empowered. We need to be able to earn a living for ourselves and for our families. And so as a non-profit, we gave it serious thought. How can non-profits indeed help? And so we came up with a project which we're in the middle of implementing. Our global entrepreneurship initiative for young people, particularly the fellowship.
What's that about?
Great. I love talking about it, so thank you for asking me. What is it about? We realized, like I said, that if you select the right kind of young people, people with good ideas, people who are passionate, people who are serious about business, doing business, if you select those kind of young people, and you build their capacity. You see, business is a risky thing anywhere in the world. I think in global statistics is that on the average, only 30 to 35% of businesses succeed. That's small. Perhaps in our environment, in our country with more challenges, the figures may be lower than that. Okay. So what do you do? And that's why it's important that for us, as we took it on as a task, we stood back and said, what can we do to improve the chances of these young people when they start a business, that their business actually succeeds.
Okay.
And that's why we conceived the fellowship program.
Okay.
You see, it isn't about workshops, just about workshops. It isn't about meetings alone. It's about a fellowship, a one-year fellowship in which you train them,
okay.
in which you work with them, in which you support them to establish their business, in which you continue to provide supervision and oversight so that the businesses flourish well. But we also, in which you give them some support financially because they do have that financial problem. So our fellowship encompasses all of that.
Okay.
Extensive trainings over many months, seed grant to help them in terms of financial ideas, support, fleshing out their business ideas with them, making sure it's a business opportunity, discussing the challenges, and actually starting the business with them.
Okay. We could go on and on, but we'd have to end it here. We have been talking to Dr. Kechi Ubuagu. She is the president and founder of Conversation for Change. It was a real pleasure talking to you on Business Express. The equities market of the Nigerian Stock Exchange has continued to attract the attention of investors as Nigeria steps up efforts to make investment in the sector more viable. The NSE did anticipate volatility in the equities market in the first half of 2019 with enhanced stability post-elections, while expecting an uptick in market activity during the second half of the year. On how the Nigerian Stock Exchange has fared so far in the midst of the battle between the bulls and the bears, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Onyema, describes the market as resilient.
I have to say that the market has proven itself to be extremely resilient, given the kind of volatility that we've seen from 2015, the 2016 economic downturns, and recovery in 2017 and 2018 being like a midway year, if you will, as people got ready for elections. The market in all has handled it well.
And on the global market, stocks surge again with Dow Jones pointing to a 170 points gain at open. Asian stocks mostly advanced after Wall Street's overnight rally. Bosede Abel has a summary of market activities.
European stocks traded higher Wednesday, the 5th of June, but the rally slowed throughout the day after the European Commission ruled Italy was in the breach of fiscal rules. Stocks in Asia gained ground during trade, following an overnight rally on Wall Street. Japan Nikkei rose 1.80%, and Hang Index rose more than 0.2%, while the Shanghai Composite was close to flat at 2,861.42. U.S. stock index futures gave back some of their gains after the release of much weaker than expected jobs data. Dow Jones Industrial Average future traded 63 points higher, indicating a gain of 72 points at the open, while the S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures also shaped gains.
Thank you, Bosede. Nearly half of the liquefied petroleum gas, also known as cooking gas, consumed in the country in the past 3 months of the year was imported from India and 5 other countries. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that 47% of the LPG supplies in the country in the first quarter of this year was imported, while 53% was produced locally. The United States accounted for 46%, which is 67.10 million litres of Nigeria's LPG imports in the period, while India, Trinidad and Tobago, Algeria, Argentina, Equatorial Guinea supplied the remaining 1%. According to the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the country has around 202 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves, plus about 600 trillion cubic feet unproven gas reserves, but it has continued to import LPG. And still talking commodities, crude oil prices were under pressure as commodity fell in global markets and were on track for their biggest monthly fall since November. Let's see a graphic representation of commodity prices. And as part of the campaign to beat plastic pollution, a photo exhibition by National Geographic was unveiled Tuesday by the immediate past president of UN General Assembly, Maria Fernanda Espinosa, together with Oscar, Tony, Emmy and Grammy recipient Whoopi Goldberg. Espinosa said the world must choose to phase out single-use plastic in support of the initiative. The new president of the General Assembly, Tijani Mohammed Bandi, said this is important because the repercussions of climate change reverberates around the world. The exhibit, a partnership between the National Geographic and the Office of the President of the General Assembly and supported with funding from the government of Monaco, strives to highlight how this simple material reshaped both global industries and everyday life, and how it has become such an important component of life on Earth. Meanwhile, the Naira remains at an average of 361 Naira to a dollar in the Bureau de Change segment of the market. Let's see the exchange rate on the foreign exchange market. That brings us to the end of this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now. Don't forget to use the hashtag BizX. We value your feedback, so keep the mails coming and join us again on Friday. Enjoy the rest of the Salah holidays. I am Amina Nujaim. Thank you for watching.